I am so sick of losing in this game. I hate it! Everybody calm down, okay? Everything's gonna be okay. Cribbage it's a tough game. It's a little complicated, and we all would like to be better. The question is, how do we get better at cribbage? Well, I'm Zulwarnx here from ZulwarnGames, and I'm here to tell you a basic outline of how you can improve your cribbage play no matter what level you're at. So make sure you stick around to get all the tools and tips and tricks and recommendations. Here we go. First off, if you are a beginner, if you know the rules of the game of cribbage, but you're like, what do I do? How do I know what to discard? What are we going to do here? What's going on? The first thing I suggest is that you focus on making your counting better and more consistent. To get any sort of handle on discard strategy, which is where the majority of the points are made and lost when you discard, you have to make sure you're counting as best as possible. Not just when, you're counting at the end of each round. You have to make sure you know how to count different hands quickly when you're choosing what to discard. And this is the first and most often messed up step by beginners. Even my almost 9-year-old who plays the game really well and has a good sense of strategy will still make mistakes in counting, and he's good enough that he's at the point where I don't let him take those anymore. So make sure you don't make those mistakes. I recommend you come up with a plan for counting your cards, an order of points to count in, and stick with that. I use this order: 15s, pairs, triples, quads. Pairs, triples, and quads are all kind of together because they're the of a kind: 2 of a kind, 3 of a kind, 4 of a kind. Then I count my runs, then I count my flushes, and then I count knobs. If you don't know what those are, I do have a video on that. I have a lot of videos out there, so stick with this one till the end, and then go check out my playlist in the description for more specific videos on where you need to improve. Alright, but if you're looking at counting, to improve on this, I have 2 basic suggestions. Number 1, play a lot of cribbage, especially with someone who can correct you if you're counting wrong. So playing in person, whether online in person or in person would be great. If you're playing a computer online in cribbage, that's perfectly fine. No problem with that. Just make sure you turn on manual counting, because if you're letting the computer do all the counting for you, it's not really going to make you a better player, better at counting. The second thing I want you to do is to use some cribbage score practice programs. Cribbage Pro has a great score hand tool. You can put the cards in and it'll count it for you. You can check your counting to make sure it's right. If you're ready for some quick practice, here's one that I found that I like a lot. This is called Crib Assistant. Link in the description. Alright, so if you go here to this website on Crib Assistant, link is in the description, and you go down to Training 2, it's hand scoring. So it gives you a hand example right down here where it says cards on hand and cut. You count it up, and you can click the blue button to randomize hands. So here I see I've got a 2, 4, 5, 5 queen, no flush, so I'm going to start with 15s. I got a 15-2, a 15-4 with those queens, the queen and 5, and I have a pair of 6. The 2, 4 are not going to help, so I'm going to guess the score is 6. And good job, my score is correct. And you can keep clicking this to randomize hands, and you'll be able to figure out and practice where you mess up. They'll explain it if you get it wrong. So this is a good one. I like this one a lot. All right, so if you've got scoring down, it's time for you to move up to the intermediate level, okay? So now we're going to talk about basic discard strategy and pegging rules. Discard strategy, you basically just want to give yourself the most potential points. If you are the dealer, you're going to count your hand and your crib, and you're going to add those points together. So if you throw like 15 for 2 or a pair or something in your crib, you get to keep those points towards your potential. You add them together. Again, I have lots of videos on that. One coming out very, very, very soon. So, or it might be out already, depending on when you watch this. So check out my channel. This one will also be linked in there. So I'm going over the general stuff here. Okay, if you are the pawn or non-dealer, you are subtracting the points that you throw into the opponent's crib from your hand. So even if you give yourself 10 points, if you're giving them a potential 4 points, it might not be in your best interest. Okay? All the counting and all the points are equal. You want to keep cards that can add up to 5. Those have a better chance of scoring points. You want to keep cards that are close together. That way a cut can help make a run. Or worst comes to worst, you want to keep cards that add up to a value of 11, because those 11s are very powerful in pegging. Or if it's the other person's crib and you're just like, I just want to mess with them, give them cards that are far apart that'll hurt their crib. I love to throw a queen in a 6. I don't know why. It's not even the best one, but it's just, those are so disconnected. I think it's fun. With pegging, I just want you to start learning and following the general pegging rules. There are some hard and fast rules that, of course, are made to be broken in specific situations, but you have to learn the rules before you can break them. There's a lot more nuance than what these rules allow, but you've got to get them in your head first, okay? For more on these pegging rules, you can check out my videos, or I'm actually going to recommend that you check out this collab video I did with Rulies on their YouTube channel. Should be popping up in the eye, wherever that is, and in the description. I go over some of those basic rules pretty quickly. At this point, it's time to dig into board position if you're moving into the advanced phase, and of course pegging traps. But let's start with board position. There are a number of people out there who say board position doesn't matter, and they're like, I still win a lot. Yes, you win probably about 50% of the time, or maybe just over, because you have a good grasp of the other things. But if you want to get those numbers up even higher, especially if you're competing against people who really understand it, you've got to get into board position. Basically, this is you saying, based on averages, that hey, I'm ahead, so I need to make sure the other person, I need to play defensively, make sure they don't catch up to me and get to where their par hole is or where they should be, and if they're in a better position to win. Or I'm kind of behind, I think I might need to play riskier, even if it's not the best potential hand. It gives me the highest possible hand, and it might help me to catch up. Pretty complex, almost impossible to explain in a very short video. So I recommend that at this point you're going to start having to read. Like, I need you to read some books, because there's some videos out there that kind of explain it, but reading and watching are really the best ways to do it. So the number one book that I recommend you get to talk about this is this, Play Winning Cribbage by Delyn Colvert. This is like, the the holy grail of cribbage books, and I believe, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, that he was one of the ones that really came up with this idea of board strategy in the first place and board position. So this is a great book for all levels. It goes over like very beginner stuff too, but the second half of the book is all like advanced kinds of things, and it includes some pegging traps, which you also need to start looking into so you can make the best plays during pegging. Okay. Another one I recommend along the same lines is this one, A New Concept by John Chambers, Cribbage, A New Concept. This is also a great book for getting into that, and I found it helped me a little bit more with the board position. It made more sense to me than the other book, but I read the other one. I think it's just like something about the way they phrased it finally clicked a bit better when I started reading this one. So really good stuff here. Okay, I also recommend at this point that you start going to Daily Cribbage Hand and you start commenting, or not, you can't comment right away, but start voting right away, and for sure read the comments, because the people who do Daily Cribbage Hand religiously are the masters, the experts, and so reading what they suggest or what they threw for a Daily Cribbage Hand is really exciting. Let's check out that website if you haven't. So here is Daily Cribbage Hand of the day. It usually gives a somewhat complicated hand, and this one was suggested by Raz, who is one of the top players of all time. So that's pretty cool. And we're like thinking we're at the beginning of the game, and what kind of hand do we want to keep for ourselves? We got a 2, 4, 9 that we could add up to 15 for 2. Of course, we've got the 5 Queen King, 15, 15 2, 15 4. So what's the best potential here? What should we throw? This one's kind of tricky. I'm just going to click through. I don't know. My gut maybe kind of says the 5 Queen for some reason. I don't know. We'll go with this. We'll see what happens. You can go on to the results, and you can see what other people voted. So it looks like most people voted for the 4 5 Queen King. Some people voted for the 2 4 9 Queen, which is similar to what I did. I chose to throw the Queen into my crib because I guess I thought it was a little better. But even better than all this is you can scroll down and you can see what other people chose and how many votes they did. JQT has 4,000 votes, clearly a very high-level player, going into insane detail on what he chose and why he chose that, as well as some other anecdotes and some other people. So if you scroll down, you see a lot of people were keeping the 5 with the queens, but a good number of people were keeping that 2 4 9. And you'll start to recognize some of these names the more you do it too. So it's kind of funny. I haven't been on here in a minute to see all the people, but this is a good one. I strongly recommend checking this one out. And doing it as much as possible. You'll just learn a lot even from reading. And if you feel brave, you can comment yourself too. If you are looking to be an expert player, an advanced player moving on, or even these kind of blend together depending on where you are, I want you to read more books on specific cribbage scenarios, especially on endgame pegging. I'm reading for right now is here, Miracles on 4th Street. So that would be like the last 30 holes. And how the rules that we've been talking about could completely change depending on where you are in pegging. I've seen and lost so many games. So many games in the last 26 holes. So I really recommend that book and others. I'd consider myself somewhere around that, advanced. I want to moving into expert in some ways level. I don't know if I'm ever going to make that expert place. I hope I do. Maybe someday. But we also need to look more deeply at our discards to find the absolute maximum potential based on the odds and track averages with each discard. This is where we're really getting into the weeds. Our general suggestions up to this point, and even the board strategy, is going to work well for us 95% of the time. But if you're at this level, you don't want to make the right choice 95% of the time. You want to make the choice 100% of the time correctly and leave as little to the odds as possible. So at this point, I would recommend you go check out CribbageForum.com and their course of study and Shell's discards tables. This is a website run by Michael Shell, and he goes over all the steps he did on how to improve himself and reach a high level of cribbage skill. This is great for all levels of players, especially those who are intermediate trying to look at getting advanced. I took a lot of inspiration from his article there, so I strongly suggest, link in the description, that you go check that out when this video is over. Also, get involved in any of the cribbage groups online. Reddit is pretty active, and there's also a podcast. Did you know that? It's pretty new as of the making of this video. It's called the Competitive Cribbage Podcast. I've enjoyed listening to it when I have a chance. Sometimes they talk about funny stories about cribbage and talk to interesting cribbage personalities. Sometimes they get into the weeds and they talk more about strategy. So it's a really, really cool site. I also, as far as tools go and the discard potential, I encourage you to check out Crib Assistant because they have a scoring thing too, and Cribbage Pro's discard calculator tool. You can put in any hand and it'll spit back out what your score is for that hand and trying to reach the maximum potential. It's a good one. I like it a lot. If you're looking to become a master, I don't have a ton of advice for you other than what I think I've seen and heard from other people because I am nowhere near that yet. So I'm not exactly sure what it takes to get to that point. So it seems like the highest level players, because they've been playing so much, they really know the play style of people and they can kind of feel out the play style of people and adjust the way they play to compensate for that or attack those weaknesses, especially at tournaments. These people, the cribbage world is not that big. They play each other a lot, and so they know, oh, this person tends to, lead with a jack when they don't have a pair of jacks just to mess with you, to scare you off pairing it. So I'm going to pair it because I think it's safe. And just weird stuff like that. It also seems like the highest level players track a lot of the games they play and track a lot of their hands and how things worked out for them so they can try to find weaknesses in their play like, oh, I lead this here. Statistically, this isn't really the best thing to lead here in this specific hand. And they learn about specific hands and how they should be used effectively. So, like I said, not a master, but those things I think would be good to learn to reach that level. If you are a master at cribbage, please comment and give us your advice or reach out to me. And maybe we can chat sometime and you can give your advice. So we'll get a collection of master advice going on here. But those are all great things to help you improve your cribbage game. I have a lot of videos to help you get better, and I'm learning all the time, and I love to share what I learn. So please check out my channel and subscribe. And check out especially the playlist. You're like, I'm really weak at pegging. Check out some of my pegging videos. I just need to watch somebody play and see what they're thinking. I've got quite a few gameplay videos out there, and you can learn or learn what not to do based on what I do. So don't give up, please. Please don't give up. The cribbage is still a game largely of luck. You're going to lose even if you're the best player in the world. It's going to happen. So don't give up. Start to think more about where you are and what your strategy should be. And above all, keep on playing.